In today's video, got 4 brand new polls that were just released today. They're hot off the presses, and if you're interested in looking at all of the polling data for yourself, I'll link all 4 articles down at the bottom of the video description. Of course, there's a ton of different things that were polled. I'm just going to be touching on a few things here and there, so if you want to see all of the different statistics, I highly recommend checking out all of these different sources. So starting off here, this is the only national 2020 Democratic primary poll from today that we're going to be going over, and then there are 3 state-specific results, and in general, it's painting a pretty solid picture for Joe Biden specifically and the centrists, while you have Sanders and Warren that are trying to push themselves into that position where they can try to be maybe a bit more competitive with Biden. But we see here with The Economist and YouGov, Biden leading the pack at 26% of support, followed by Warren at 21% and Sanders at 16%. And of all the national polls, specifically, YouGov has been a little bit more bullish towards Warren and a little less so towards Sanders in terms of comparing it to their average national numbers, and we're continuing to see that here with this particular updated numbers from YouGov. And then behind Sanders, who's in third place at 16, you have Pete Buttigieg at 11%, and then there's quite a drop-off to the rest of the pack where you have Bloomberg at 4%, Tulsi Gabbard and Andrew Yang and Cory Booker each at 3 percentage points respectively. And then going down and taking a look at the second choice for those that still have their mind open and could possibly change to maybe somebody else. We see Warren leads the second choice at 13%, followed by Sanders at 10%, Joe Biden at 9%, Buttigieg at 8%, and then there's a little bit of a gap there again between the top 4 individuals in the rest of the field, and pretty competitive there among the top 4 where they're all within 5 percentage points of each other. All right, so now moving over to a couple of state-specific polls that were released today from CNN. First, we're going to take a look at this Texas poll, and then we have a California poll after that. And in Texas, Joe Biden doing really well for himself, leading the pack at 35%, followed by Bernie, who's at 15% in second place. And it's important to get to that 15 percentage point threshold to be part of the candidates that divvy up those pledged delegates. None of the other candidates are able to reach that 15 percentage point threshold, with Warren at 13 points, Buttigieg at 9, Bloomberg at 5, and then all the other candidates at 3 percentage points or less. And a bad poll here for Julian Castro, given his ties to the state of Texas. He's only able to grab 3%. Now, Joe Biden, I've been talking about this. His strength is likely to come exactly where Hillary Clinton's strengths were back in 2016, and that was in these southern states. Joe Biden, in the first 4 states, he's likely to have a lot of success, specifically in South Carolina. And then also as we go through this process, something like a state like Texas, you would also expect to be pretty favorable towards the former vice president if things continue to stay how they've been looking, at least at this point in time. All right, I also just want to take a look at how these individuals are feeling towards the different candidates on different policies, both in Texas and California. So in Texas, there's a more favorable position towards Biden's stances on some of these different issues, which probably isn't a huge surprise considering he's leading the pack as a first choice among the 2020 Democratic hopefuls here. So Biden, in terms of healthcare, this is actually one of the only Democratic 2020 primary polls where I actually see Bernie Sanders not in first place on healthcare. And it takes a situation where Biden is polling ahead of Sanders by 20% in this state, and he leads him by 6% on healthcare, where he's at 32%, and Sanders there at 26 percentage points, followed by Warren, who's at 15 points. On the climate crisis, Biden leads in Texas at 29, followed by Sanders at 23. On gun policy, Biden at 32, Sanders at 15. The economy, Biden at 34, Sanders at 15, Warren at 14. And then immigration, you have Biden there at 29, Sanders at 16. So now I want to go over and take a look at this other CNN poll. This one is out of the state of California, and it shows an extremely competitive race among the top 3 individuals. Biden at 21%, Sanders at 20%, and Elizabeth Warren at 17 percentage points. And we had a sample in this one of 508 respondents, whereas that Texas one was just 327. Of course, it's going to be a little bit harder to find Democratic primary voters if you're just doing a blanket survey in Texas, as opposed to California, which is obviously going to have a lot more Democratic respondents that are answering those poll phone calls that they get, whether it's their landline or mobile phone. But for this California poll, we can see a very close race at the top, and then there's quite a bit of a gap. There's no more Kamala Harris factored into this, so that's maybe part of the vote from that was going towards Kamala might be going towards Biden in this scenario, given that they had some crossover in their support in terms of the more establishment-friendly. Also, some more African-American voters going with Biden and Kamala Harris throughout this process, so that could possibly be boosting him into first place in this result. We can see that gap between the top three and the rest where all the other candidates are in single digits, Buttigieg at 9%, Yang at 6%, Bloomberg at 5%, and then it just goes down from there. We take a look at the policy, and we can see Bernie Sanders leading on healthcare at 28%, Biden at 20%, Elizabeth Warren at 17%. And then the climate crisis, Bernie leading at 27%, Joe Biden at 18%, Warren at 17%. Gun policy, all pretty similar among the top three individuals, with Sanders at 18%, Biden at 17%, Warren at 16%. The economy is where Biden is doing his best at 23%, followed by Sanders at 19% and Warren at 16%. And then immigration, also pretty competitive there between Biden and Sanders at 21 and 20 percentage points, respectively. Now, to wrap things up, just one more poll, and this one out of the state of New Hampshire. I'm not loving how this is particularly laid out in this article, as you can see, but we can focus in on the numbers here over on the right-hand side of this article. And another situation where it's very competitive, especially among the top individuals here, Pete Buttigieg in first place in this one at 18% of support, followed by Biden at 17%, Sanders at 15%, and Elizabeth Warren at 12%. And this was 442 likely New Hampshire Democratic primary voters, so we're seeing another very close race. And it's actually a situation in the first two states, specifically in Iowa and New Hampshire, where we see a lot of shifting around and changes, and very close and competitive among the top four individuals of Buttigieg, Biden, Sanders, and Warren. And it could possibly continue to be that way as we head towards these early state results. And whoever is able to really break through and get that top spot in these early states can help themselves and propel a positive narrative as we move our way through this process, and maybe perhaps have a bigger effect on their national numbers working their way through primary season. So those are the four polls that I wanted to touch on in today's video. And again, if you want to check out all of the statistics for yourself, I'll link the articles down at the bottom of the video description. So I appreciate you guys stopping by, and of course, consider subscribing to the YouTube channel, and I hope to see you guys back here for my next video.